I had performed abortions for 5 years, but this time felt different. I was in the middle of infertility treatment and so desperately wanted to be a mother. The patient was in the room waiting. I had never met her. I felt stuck. After the abortion, I came out of the room and cried, "How can I take life from somebody else when I so desperately want it myself?" That was the last abortion I ever did. 10 years later, at the end of a busy call day, a woman came in with abdominal pain. I reviewed her medical history with her and asked her if she had had any complications from her abortion. And she looked at me and said, "You should know you did it." I realized that was the same patient, and my heart sank. We made a plan to help her with her pain and for her to come back a few days later. After she left, I poured through her chart and realized that I conceived with my son 3 days after I did her abortion. I dropped to my knees and asked for forgiveness and felt the grace of God pour over me. She returned a few days later and she was feeling better. I asked if I could share something with her, and she gave me permission to share the story of hers being the last abortion I ever did. She wept as I shared my story and told me it was the worst decision she ever made and wished that she had never gone through with it. Her sister was in the room at the time of the abortion and had had an unplanned pregnancy and had placed her baby for adoption. She said she wished she had also had the courage to do the same and had talked many friends out of abortion since. I looked at her with tears in my eyes and said, "Will you forgive me?" And she gently replied, "Yes." Through the experience of performing abortions and the subsequent 20 years of pro-life work, I have become passionate about finding common ground to begin the conversations. I have close friends who are pro-life, and I have close friends who are convicted that abortion is a crucial way to help and support women. Hopefully, many of you are sitting around a table watching this tonight. God brings us to the table to sit with people who don't look like us, live like us, or vote like us. Yet, He calls us to stay at the table. How can we stay at the table when it feels so uncomfortable? The table is a place of commonality and nourishment, yet it can be a place of conflict. When is the last time you looked at your Thanksgiving table? How can we sit and stay at the table? Most importantly, we need to listen. Really listen. Active listening is not thinking about your next counterpoint. It's putting yourself in the other person's seat and trying to understand where they're coming from. It's showing empathy and not arguing somebody into your point of view. Slow down the conversation with pauses and frequently paraphrase what you've heard. Trent Horn, in his book, Persuasive Pro-Life, states that by not talking instead listening intently to what the person is saying, you can let the steamroller run out of steam. As much as we want to believe we can change someone's mind, it's very rare to be able to argue someone into your point of view. Remember, it's okay to sit in uncomfortable silence. My partner, Hal Vick, listened to me. He asked questions instead of proclaiming pro-life statements. He was patient and encouraged me to wonder and wrestle with my convictions. He brought me to my first pregnancy resource center, Gala, where the speaker told her story of getting pregnant after a gang rape as a teenager. She was sent away to have the baby and place her for adoption. 21 years later, her daughter found her, and as they embraced, they shared their lifelong prayer that they would each know the love of Jesus. The speaker then looked at the audience and said, "If God is the author of life, He doesn't make mistakes." At that moment, it was clear to me that abortion was not only something I was not ever going to do, but also a conviction that it shouldn't be done. It was just a few months later that I joined the Pregnancy Resource Center Medical Advisory Committee. My sister and brother-in-law also listened to me for years. They never pushed, argued, or shamed me for doing abortions. They sat in uncomfortable silence with me and they prayed. Today, they are my biggest encouragers in the fight for life. In addition to listening, we need to learn. We need to learn about the issue from both perspectives. When is the last time you read a pro-choice article? We need to break up the echo chamber and learn the other perspective instead of only listening to those who think like you. After I stopped doing abortions, I was invited to debate the abortion issue with the same people who taught me to do abortions. It was intimidating sitting before 250 people when I felt like 245 of them disagreed with me. To prepare for the debate, I read pro-choice literature so I could understand their perspective and start with common ground. We do have common ground because every one of us is created in the image of God, from the women to the preborn baby to the person we disagree with. We need to listen, we need to learn, we need to find common ground as a starting point and agree whenever possible. We don't always have to be right and always win. We also need to have the humility and wisdom to admit when we're wrong. In his book, Common Ground Without Compromise, Steve Wenger states that we should build common ground to begin a dialogue at the beginning of the argument. We should also retreat to common ground frequently throughout the argument, not to give up on finding the truth, but to gain necessary footing so we can move forward to a new consensus on what is true. If the argument we're having is like a car taking us to the beach of truth, then common ground is like the fuel. It's important to remember that in these conversations, we need to stop and refuel by returning to the issues we agree with. For example, most people believe that being a single parent with minimal support is challenging. My pro-choice friends enter into the conversation about the best ways to come alongside women who have decided to continue their pregnancy despite the extreme challenges they face. I have been involved with Young Lives, which is Young Life for teen moms and their babies. We mentor, support, and encourage these moms in their journey. They are the most discriminated and shamed group on campus. Offering this as a starting point, most people can embrace the importance of coming alongside these courageous women. Finally, we need to be able to stay at the table with empathy and compassion. And we can when we remember that Jesus is in the center of the table. We are all made in the image of God, and He binds us together. The staff and volunteers at First Image listen, learn, find common ground, and intentionally place Jesus in the center of a controversial table. That's why I said yes to being the volunteer medical director 12 years ago. The Medical Advisory Committee works with our incredible Director of Nursing, Anka, to create centers of medical excellence, compassion, and grace. And this is crucial because the people at the table are real women who are making life-altering decisions. So let's stay at the table for them. Thank you.